Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and today we are going to be restoring this vintage Action Man Tom Stone figure. Now, as you can see, poor old Tom in the middle of it has fallen to pieces, and this is very common with this toy. He's held together with rubber bands. They hold his arms and his legs on, and over the years those bits of rubber perish, and that causes the arms and the head and the legs to fall off. In this instance, the legs are actually still in reasonably good condition, but we need to sort out reattaching his arms and his head. Then we've got to do a few other fixes as well, because as you can see at the moment he doesn't have a uniform, and we need to sort that out and sort out a beret and the badge on the beret. So we are going to be doing all of that today. Now, I have previously covered fixing up this style of Action Man figure. If you've watched my previous series on restoring a vintage Bullet Man, he uses pretty much the same body. It's the same way of constructing them, so the arms that are held on with rubber, but on the Bullet Man he doesn't have rubber hands. He's got these sort of solid plastic hands, and with the Tom Stone here, you can see that he has these rubber hands that get very brittle. In fact, these are so brittle I've already managed to snap one of them off by mistake, but I have ordered some replacements of these, so those will be turning up and we will need to swap those in. So that's another thing that we will need to do to get this Tom Stone up and running. The first thing though that we actually need to do is to remove the old bits of rubber that are stuck inside his arms. You'll see here at the end that there's bits of the remnants of this rubber band that held the figure together. This tends to go very brittle and sort of hard, so what we've got to do is sort of poke various things inside here and try and push this out. There's also some inside his body because his head is held on by the same sort of rubber, and I can hear things rattling about, so we need to remove that. Once we've got that all out, we can then give this a good clean and start reconstructing him. So first up, let's remove these old bits of brittle rubber. We'll start by removing these bits of old rubber from inside his biceps. If I shake this near my microphone, you'll hear that there is something inside this bicep. And the only way to get that out is to break it up. It's gone very brittle, and every once in a while you'll shake it and you'll be able to see it at the bottom of the biceps. If I sort of shake this about, I can move it around and then I can just about see it, and I'm going to stick a pair of tweezers inside and just sort of push on the bit of rubber, and it will start to break up, and then you'll get small pieces of it coming out of the armhole. There you go, a few more pieces coming out, so I'll do that again. I'll just break that a little bit more, and it will slowly come out. It's a fairly tedious job because it's awkward to get these pieces out, but you can do it. There you go, another piece, a few more pieces. So I've got to do this to both biceps, and hopefully it will stop this arm from rattling when you shake it about. You can see they do keep sort of dropping out. There's quite a lot of this stuff in there. Actually, I can just see the last bit there if I break that piece up. There we go. So now this bicep is empty. There's nothing inside it. So I've got to do the same to this bicep, same process. And then also on the arms, you'll see that there's rubber left in this end portion here. This is the sort of the hinge part of his arm, the elbow joint, I suppose. And what you've got to do is just, again, put your tweezers in there, and you can break it up. It makes rather a mess, but it's worth getting all of this out because this will make fixing the figure together a whole lot easier. This may look like crumbled up bits of chocolate, but it's not. This is the perished rubber that's inside those arms. It's yeah, rather strange stuff. I'm just going to chuck that straight away in case someone thinks it's chocolate and sprinkles it on their drink. We also have this same issue on the body. It's another piece of that perished rubber inside there. I don't know if you can hear that rattling around. I've got to do the same process. This is a little bit more awkward to do on camera because I really have to sort of hold this above my head and then put the tweezers in to find the piece. But I will get there and I'll get this piece removed. Again, it's just the same bit of old rubber. It's just perished, and it's very easy to break up. So once you get it in a position that you can easily grab, it comes out quite easily. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to do that off camera. So now that's all gone, we can give Tom Stone a good wash, and I'm just going to be using hot soapy water and an old toothbrush because that will get most of the grime off him. With his hair here, you can see in the flock there's lots of bits of fluff, and most of that will come out if you just use a toothbrush and make it a little bit damp. You can just sort of brush it away, and the fluff starts to come out. With a little bit of time you can just sort of pull all of that out, and we'll get that looking nice and black again, because his hair should be black, but you can see there's lots of flecks in it. So yeah, let's give him a good wash, tidy him all up, and then we can start reconstructing the figure. Some of you may be wondering why I'm fixing up Tom Stone when I clearly already have one here in front of me. But the reason I'm doing that is because this isn't actually an all original Tom Stone. His head and his outfit are all original Tom Stone, but the body comes from Cotswold Collectibles, so it's not quite the right body. If I take off his gun there, and I'll show you, if I open up the jacket or the top here, just to undo that popper, you can see this is actually a sort of early edition version of a Action Man body, just cast in a dark brown plastic. So it's not the right body. You'll see that the Tom Stone body has the blue pants and is constructed in completely a different way. So the arms on this are not held in with elastic that goes right down to the elbows. They just have a bit of elastic that hooks around some hooks on the shoulders, and same with the legs. So this, although it looks like an original Tom Stone, it's not an original Tom Stone. This was very kindly put together by a good friend of mine, Nick, who is Action Pop Dad on YouTube. He put this together for me using as many original pieces as he can find, but finding the bodies is getting harder and harder because they are made of quite a brittle plastic, so they do tend to break quite easily. But that's why today I'm really excited to be able to actually get an original Tom Stone body and put together an all original version of this figure.
Toy-polloi.
Now everything is nice and clean, we can go about putting him back together, and I've shown you this before. The first thing I do is always take the neck post out of the head. I've shown this again in multiple videos, so I've not bothered showing it again today. Basically you just get a screwdriver and sort of push around the edge and you can pop that post out. That is vital for a next stage of this process. But first we have to put the arms together. So the way they are constructed is we need to put some new elastic through this hole. It's got to come out the hole at the bottom, and then we go around the post in the lower arm there, and then thread it back through the hole and then back out of the bicep, and that will give us an arm that is held together with two pieces of elastic coming out of the end. We've got to do that for both sides. Now normally I would use elastic like this, which is round elastic, which is 2mm in diameter, and it's just about right. It's just about small enough that you can get it through the hole. But when I went to my haberdashery shop, they didn't have this in black. I wanted it in black because obviously white is going to show really too much, so I wanted some 2mm black round elastic, but all they had was 3mm black round elastic. So I'm going to have a go with this and just hope that it works. So what I've done here is I've wrapped a piece of beading wire just around the end of a piece of elastic, and we're going to use the beading wire to thread this through, and hopefully it's a little bit thicker, and I'm just hopeful that there is enough space that we can actually get this all threaded on and it will still work. Ideally you want the 2mm stuff, but today, as I only had this, that's what we're going to have a go with. So you get the end of the piece of wire, and we now have to try and thread this through the bicep first. So we push the wire in and just sort of wiggle it around. You'll find that it goes through fairly easily. It does take a little bit of sort of toing and froing and just sort of bending the wire a bit just to see which way it's got to go. But you will be able to get this wire out. At some point you'll see it sort of poke through the bottom, and then you'll be able to thread the wire through and pull the elastic through. Today I'm not having much luck. I'm obviously not got the right way of doing it. Oh, there we go. So there you go, you can see the wire has come through. Now we've got to push this bit of wire with the elastic through. Hopefully it's not too thick, but we'll see what we can do. Let me wiggle that around, which is going in. There we go. Right, so that has gone through quite nicely. So you can see we now have a piece of elastic through the bicep. Now we've got to get the elastic around this metal post in the forearm here. So I'm just going to put a little sort of bend in the end of the beading wire again, so I can hook that around. Like so. Now I should be able to pull the beading wire, and we'll get the elastic around that little post. Alright, yeah, we've got that through. Yeah, that's starting to come together. You can see that we now have the beginnings of the arm. So now the next trick is to actually thread this back through. Because this is a bit thicker, this is where it may cause me some issues. So let's just hope that I can actually get this done, and we'll see what happens. So again, we take the end of the beading wire, and we've got to thread this back through the bicep and get it out of the top. There we go, got it. So that's the wire through. Now let's see if I can pull the second piece of elastic through. Oh, done it, right. It is possible. There we go. So we've now got all of the elastic through, and you can see that is a arm with new elastic in. So I've now got to do this again on the other arm, and once you have the two arms done, we can then thread both of these bits of elastic through the body and we'll attach the head. So let me get the other arm done exactly the same, and we're halfway there. So I've now got both arms done. For some reason the second arm was an awful lot trickier than the first one, but I did manage to do it. So we've got elastic through both, and as you can see they are now actually starting to look like arms. The next bit is another tricky process. So I've got the two ends of the elastic, I've wrapped a bit of beading wire around it again. Now we've got to thread this elastic through the armhole here and also get it out of the neck hole at the top, and you can see there's a post across the middle, so you want the elastic to come for the left arm on the left hand side of that post and for the right arm on the right hand side of that post. So it's a sort of just a tricky process, again bending the beading wire until you've got it into a slight curve, and we'll now try and thread this through. It can be done because I've done it many times before, but it is awkward, and it just takes a little bit of practice and some patience, because all of these things, you know, if you rush it, chances are it won't work. So just keep going and keep going slowly and be patient with it. So there you go, you can see I've done one arm. This is an awful lot easier with the smaller elastic. I'd say this 3mm elastic is just that little bit too big, but it can be done. So I'm struggling a little bit to get this sorted, but I have the first arm attached. I've now got to do exactly the same process with the other arm, and then we are almost there. We then just got to attach the head. But yeah, certainly this 3mm elastic is just that little bit too big. I wish they'd had the 2mm elastic in stock, but I think if I'd put white elastic in this, you would have really seen it in all of these joints. So it's a sort of pros and cons of the sort of fixing process. If I'd waited, I could probably have got some 2mm elastic, but I might as well carry on. I'm halfway there now, so let's get this other arm attached and then we can put the head on. Okay, we're on to the final hurdle now. As you can see, I've now got both arms threaded through. It was fairly difficult, but they are done. So I've now got 4 bits of this 3mm elastic stuck through the neck hole. And the next trick, which again would be a lot easier if this was the 2mm elastic, is that I've got to thread the neck post on. So as you can see at the bottom of there is a hole. So all of those bits of elastic have got to be threaded through there, and then we knot it on top. And that will keep everything together. You tie it as tight as you can. That pulls all the arms in and pulls the neck on. So this will be a little bit of a challenge, as I say, because I've got to get 4 bits of 3mm elastic through a relatively tiny hole. I'll see if I can do it. This may be a challenge too far, but let's just give it a go. So I've already wrapped the wire around. Let's just sort of see if we can get this done. No, that's not working. Right, I'll have to try a different method. There's just too much wire there and too much elastic. I'll see if I can do something else, but you get the idea. With 2mm elastic, this would be very easy. Okay, so a slight change of plan. I've got something that actually works now. Because this elastic is so thick, it's just not going to go through the neck post hole. So what I've done is I've taken one piece of elastic from each arm and tied them together. So you can now see there is a knot of elastic just there in the neck post. That's allowed me to get the other 2 pieces of elastic through the neck post hole like this. I can now tie these up nice and tight and tie a knot in the top. and that will hold the Tom Stone figure together. It's not quite as neat as I'd hoped, but sometimes you just have to sort of modify what you're doing. So I've got nice tight bits of elastic now. The arms are held on nice and tight. I'll just do a double knot at the top here. We can cut the bits of excess elastic off and we'll put his head back on, and that Tom Stone will be fixed together. Yeah, you just have to sort of go with what you've got sometimes. It's just part of toy fixing. Sometimes things don't work out quite how you imagine, but we can still get a good result. So if I just chop those bits of elastic off, you can see that his arms are now firmly held in place, and we can pose him as you would. The neck post is nice and firmly held on, and we'll get Tom Stone's head, and I can just pop that back on and we'll click that in place, and there we go. That will be Tom Stone's body all back together. Okay, well, I had a slight change of plan. The elastic is just too thick and I wasn't happy with what was going on. I did try tying two of the bits of elastic together and then putting those through the neck post, which did work, but it meant that the neck was at a slight sort of odd angle. So what I've done is actually gone back to the drawing board. I removed all of the elastic again and I started again. I did it a different way, which is probably the way I should have done it to start with. So what I did was I fed a piece of elastic through the neck, out through the shoulder there, then I wrapped it all the way around the arms as I'd shown, and then back in through the chest, all the way through the chest, through the other side's armhole, then around the arm, back through the shoulder, and then up to the top. So we basically had one piece of elastic doing a loop all the way around and back out the neck hole. That's actually what I did on the Bullet Man, and I sort of changed my mind when I came to do him. So now there are just two pieces of elastic. You can just about see those there coming through, and it is one continuous loop, and then I've tied a knot on top of the neck post, and as you can see, that works really nicely, and especially with this slightly thicker elastic, it's enabled me to get him all back together. So I probably should have done this from the start, but sometimes when I'm fixing I sort of try different things or go down different routes, and in this instance, yeah, I really should have sort of paid attention, I think, when I started off. But it doesn't matter. The end result is he is now back together. You can see that we have the arms in place and his head is on, so we actually have Tom Stone who can stand up. Now we come on to the hands, and as I showed you earlier, these have got very brittle. The rubber tends to perish, goes very hard, and it's easy to snap them off. So I've just removed the right hand that I hadn't removed earlier, and you can buy replacement versions of these. So I've bought myself a set of replacement Tom Stone hands. These come from the Vintage Action Man website. I will put a link to that in the description, so if you want to set yourself, go and get them from there. You don't have to remove this wrist post to get the new hands on. You can actually squeeze this around, and that's what I wanted to do, because I don't want to remove this post because I'm worried about actually splitting and damaging the arm plastic, because again, that is pretty brittle. All you need to do, use a pair of tweezers and carefully sort of push this on, which is what I'm going to do now. As you can see, I've already done the left hand, so it's a fairly straightforward process. With Tom Stone's uniform, I'd actually got a few pieces already in. Over the years, I've sort of kept these by on the hope that one day I would get myself an original Tom Stone. So I already had his top and his trousers, and the boots are the sort of standard Action Man boots, so I have plenty of those. And then I have to say another massive thank you to Nick, Action Pop Dad, because he was off to the Action Man convention here, and I asked him if he saw the other bits that I was missing, could he grab them. So he very kindly grabbed me the little green beret. It doesn't have the badge on the front, but we will deal with that shortly. And he also grabbed me a version of the gun, which is a blue version of this machine gun. It's the same gun that comes with the SAS characters, but it's in blue, so it's very noticeably different. So very kindly grabbed me those, and those were the last two bits I needed. So I can now put this outfit onto Tom Stone, and we'll then deal with the beret and the missing badge. The interesting thing to note though on this outfit, you can see this front actually has two poppers on it, and the one that Nick gave me, this one, only has one popper on it. So I'm wondering whether there's sort of different issues and different sort of releases of this outfit, because this is definitely an original outfit. It has the right badge in the back of the neck there. It says on it Palitoy made in Hong Kong, but this one definitely has only ever had one popper on the front of it, whereas this one I can clearly see has always had two. So yeah, interesting that they're slightly different, just different releases. But yeah, let's get this onto the figure, then we'll deal with the missing beret badge. So much like the hand, you can buy reproductions of the little badge that should go on the beret. And so I've grabbed one of those. It comes from the same place that I got the hand. So again, the link will be in the description. And I just need to attach that to the beret. On the original beret, this would have been made out of metal and had some little bits that you poked through the hat and then bended back to sort of keep it in place. But this one is cast, I guess it's cast out of resin or something like that. So I am just going to glue this in place. I was just going to use a little bit of super glue. I think that should probably be enough. It doesn't need a great deal to hold it in place. It maybe some fabric glue might work better, but let's try super glue to start with. It only needs to be sort of attached lightly to the front there. So a bit of super glue on the back, and I think we should be good to go. But don't glue your finger on the back like I did there. Yeah, the glue's just gone through nicely, but the badge is on, but I did stick my finger to the back of it. So there we go, that is the little hat. We can put that onto Tom Stone now. And there we go, there is my finished Tom Stone. I'm really happy with how he's looking now. It's a fairly straightforward job to restring these bodies, but the main problem with Tom Stone is just finding the body in the first place. So in this instance, I have to say a massive thank you to John from the YouTube channel Toys Back Zen, who very kindly traded this with me. He just said he didn't collect Action Man, so we did a trade and I've sent him a load of pieces. Do check out his channel to see what I sent him. But I now have a complete Tom Stone here on the right. He has reproduction hands and a reproduction badge, but everything else is original as it should be. And the one on the left, as I say, is predominantly original, all apart from the body, which is a Cotswold collectible sort of reproduction one. So it looks just as good, but I think there's something nice about having an all original version of this figure. And again, a massive thank you to Nick from Action Pop Dad for helping me out with a few parts for this, and also for very kindly sorting out this one on the left here. There are a few more things that I may come back to fix on Tom Stone. There's a few little bits of flock missing on his hair, so I might come back and fix those. The paint on his face is actually not too bad. His eyebrows are still there, so I may do a little bit of touch up on that. And I noticed when putting the uniform on, this is one that I say that has been in my sort of spares box for a long time. Someone else has sewn the press studs on the front of the jacket, and they're not actually that well sewn on, so I might take those off and re-sew them when I've got a little bit more time. But for now, I think he looks really nice, and I'm going to be putting this in my Action Man display along with all of the other figures, because I think he's really nice and he's a unique one to add to the collection. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.